What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to DSM pregame live here on DSM-Media's Philadelphia YouTube channel. Guys, first and foremost, if you are new to the channel, make sure to check us out on Twitter at DSM_media. Hit that follow button. We greatly appreciate it. While you're over there, click the link tree in the bio. It will take you to every social media platform we are available on. But subscribe to this YouTube channel, the Turf Talk YouTube channel, and the Scotty Talks NBA YouTube channel as well. I'm one half of your host today, Dylan Davis. To my right, my main man, Scotty, who is back from the honeymoon. How's that Celsius, brother?
It's getting me right. I'm getting back on the correct East Coast schedule right now because if you don't know, Hawaii is 6 hours behind the East Coast. So I was watching NFL Sunday last Sunday at like 7 a.m. It started. That would be the 1 p.m. games. And Sunday Night Football was over by around 4 p.m. So
that's good stuff.
It's interesting, like I guess I would have just, if I ever were to move there, I would have to adjust heavily to that. But it was kind of cool starting your morning with it. But at the same time, don't like the idea of having to force myself to wake up to watch football. I'd rather just wake up, on a nice Sunday afternoon and get started here. So I'm happy to be back, man. I had a great time on the honeymoon. Obviously, I'm a hitched man now. So life has changed drastically. No, it's a lot the same, but nonetheless, I'm happy to be back here and talk about the Birds, man. They're 3-0. Marshawn Lynch, we ain't talking about that, man. We are not talking about that because that's disgusting. That is disgusting news to hear this morning. But the Eagles are going to cure us today just for a little bit, just until tomorrow. We'll get to talk about that on the Faithful Fanatic tomorrow. We'll break that down. But yeah, that's disgusting news nonetheless, Marshawn Lynch. I'm glad you pointed that out there.
Yeah, man. But you're right. Today's all about Eagles 3-0 at home. First 1 o'clock game of the season, taking on the Washington Commanders, Scotty. And a very interesting topic I guess we can start with is, a lot of talk surrounding the defense, surrounding Hassan Reddick. The defense was on lockdown 24 hours on Baker Mayfield. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Monday Night Football, but Hassan Reddick still sackless. If you go back to last year, this Washington Commanders game was kind of that breaking point. Carson Wentz in Washington when the D-line got home, what was it, 7, 8, 9, whatever, how many sacks they had of last year against Washington. Sam Howell has been taking a beating over the last week or two down in Washington. So I expect the defensive line to get after them today, man. But with that said, injury report. No Justin Evans, no Sidney Brown. Does the safety position concern you at all today?
Yeah, I think it has to, at least a little bit, right? We haven't seen much from Edmonds. I mean, he's been here or there, been slightly effective in the run game, but we really haven't seen much from him. Reed Blankenship obviously has been great when he's been in. He missed a game, I believe, just a game mixed in there. But Justin Evans was the starter, right? We saw flashes from Sidney Brown last weekend against the Bucks. So yeah, I think there has to be a little bit of a concern there, just with depth, just with the fact that you have had 3 of your 4 safeties now injured to start the season, right? Reed is back, but he was injured at one point. So there is a little bit of worry there. Although I would say at least it's not Reed Blankenship, right? Reed Blankenship seems to be your staple at safety. The other guys are kind of rotational. So Edmonds going to get a lot of run there today. And we'll see if they move some of the, some of the other DBs back there to give them some action at safety as well, just to try new things. But overall, it is a little bit of a concern, but I don't think it's going to make or break our defense today.
Yeah. No, and the very interesting point there is that both guys have shown flashes throughout the first couple weeks. Like Justin Evans, Thursday night, you and I were watching the game together. Hunter was there. D-Rab was there. Justin Evans made a couple big plays on Thursday Night Football. Last week, Sidney Brown saves a touchdown in the end zone against Mike Evans and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, right, before he gets hurt. So both guys have shown that they were capable to be on the field. You lose them. You've already lost Nakobe Dean at the linebacker position, right? Miles Jack retires before the season starts. Zach Cunningham steps up. Morrow steps up, making plays, filling a gap for a safety on Monday night. I'm keying in on the defense today, man, because the depth is showing early on in the season, man. And I know we haven't hit that point of our schedule where we're facing, true Super Bowl contending offenses and top 5 quarterbacks in the league. I understand that, but there was a lot of talk about, Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson. There was a lot of talk about the way that Baker Mayfield was operating on third downs through the first 2 weeks of the season. And for them to come in and shut them down that way, to show that depth was huge.
Yeah.
But the main guys on the defensive line, man, I got to ask you, because we haven't talked about it since you've been gone. Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis.
Yeah.
Scotty, what are your eyes telling you through the first 3 weeks with these two?
What my eyes are telling me, man, when I'm looking at, obviously, Jalen Carter, right? He's been fantastic. He jumps off the screen when you watch him play. And I think it's partly because he's a rookie, but partly because he doesn't look like a rookie as a rookie. But when you look at Jordan Davis, I think that's the calling card right there. I think that's the talking point, because he has been just as good, right? He's been great in the run game, as we predicted, as we expected of him. But he's been great in the pass rush as well when he gets his opportunities there, and he's taking advantage of them. And these guys are leading the way for this defensive line right now. They're the leaders in this room right now when it comes to play and performance on the field. Now, obviously, you got guys like BG and Fletch that are going to be your seniors, your leaders in that locker room. But these guys are leading the way with their performance, and it's going to inspire, it's going to drive the rest of this defensive line and the rest of this front seven. Yeah. Because you mentioned Hassan Reddick, even Josh Sweat. Josh Sweat is off to a better start than Hassan Reddick, but could be doing more. BG, we haven't even seen flashes yet of BG, right? So all of these guys, Fletcher Cox, they're getting motivated by these young guys dominating the defensive
openly
line.
Stating it.
Yeah, BG, Cox came out and said it. Because these guys are going to steal your reps if you don't start to perform at that level. Yeah. These guys deserve to be on the field at all times. So Cox, if he wants to stay on the field regularly, he's going to have to keep up with these guys. And he's played well as well. I don't want to undermine Fletcher Cox. It's not like he's not playing well. This whole line is playing pretty well. But there is room to grow. But these guys, they're leading the way right now. And I honestly, they've blown away my expectations to come out 100%. And start the season like that. 100%. Jalen Carter isn't even getting a massive amount of snaps right now. He's coming in on passing downs mostly, and he's still making the most of his opportunities. 8th in the NFL in QB pressures as a whole, right? 15. And I believe he's 2nd for defensive tackles. So just a monster, man. And Jordan Davis has followed. I don't even want to say he's followed right behind him. He's kind of led the way as well. They're kind of neck and neck right now.
Side by side, right? He's been his partner in crime throughout the first 3 weeks of the season. There's a lot to digest here with this defensive line, because to your point, that machine, that rotation that the Eagles are throwing out there defensively, your sack leader from last year isn't even on the board yet, right? Yeah. Josh Sweat. What does Josh Sweat have this year?
1.5.
1.5
tied for the lead, but yeah.
Right. So your leading sack guy has 1.5 sacks.
Yeah.
But your defensive line is this dominant overall.
Yeah.
Right. Marlon Tuipulotu got a sack. Right. That's how deep this line goes. Milton Williams has been really good. But a few things, man. You mentioned Jalen Carter not even playing a ton of reps. Like he's on the field. Don't get me wrong. He's on the field in critical moments. We saw him chase down the running back, punch the ball out. The awareness for that, the strength to just bully double teams back into the quarterback's face. It's amazing, but it's instant, Scotty. Yeah. It's instant. The first 3-4 plays of Monday Night Football, he wasn't on the field. It was Fletcher Cox and Milton Williams starting. Yeah. He comes in, and it's instant, man. That's what we were talking about since draft night. Rip the training wheels off. He doesn't need to be kind of eased into this thing, and you're seeing that from day one. And it was so beautiful to me that I talked about this with Sean Barnard the other day. For how many years since Fletcher Cox has been Eagle, right? The top 3 longest tenured Eagle now. How many years were we looking for a defensive tackle to put next to him to ease the double team off of Fletch, right? Yeah. Timmy Jernigan, the Super Bowl year, but he wasn't really that guy, right?
He wasn't Hargrave, that level, kind of,
but Fletch was is getting up there in age at that point. You're begging for someone. And on Monday Night Football, Jalen Carter lines up next to Fletcher Cox, sees a double team, and Fletcher Cox exploits the one-on-one and gets in Baker Mayfield's face and disrupts the play.
Yep. Yeah.
It's amazing, man. He says he feels younger. BG has come out and talk about how he and Fletch, we're rejuvenated because these guys, while they're kind of like on our heels, basically, like we have to play up to them to stay on the field, but it makes us like it's not like it's not a competition.
It's not putting pressure on their shoulders. They don't need any pressure this season. It's a long season. So there's plenty of time for BG, Fletch, Hassan Reddick, all of these guys to get involved. It's just crazy that we're starting the season with our two young Georgia Bulldogs leading the way there. And it speaks to everything you said, man. BG, Fletch, they're going to get to eat once the attention starts to be more and more divulged towards Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. Yeah. You talk about the double teams, those are going to continue, or Jalen Carter is going to be in your backfield. He's even beating double teams in reality as well. We've seen it several times where he's beaten a double team even early in this season. So it's just going to feed into the rest of the defensive line, just like you said, man.
Dude, and both of them are so strong already at this point in their career, right? Like we know how large of human beings they are. I get that. But to be, 21 years old, 22 years old when you enter the league, like Jalen Carter week one, we all remember the stop on Mac Jones when he's basically being held by an offensive lineman and just reaches out and grabs Mac Jones, right? Well, Jordan Davis on Monday night was being blocked and Rachaad White hit a hole. All Jordan Davis did was basically give him a hug. He turned to his side and put both arms around him, and Rachaad White didn't move another inch. Not an inch, dude. It's unbelievable the way that these two are impacting the game and the way that they're kind of creating for the older guys on the line. And again, the point you have to keep looking out to, very similar to the offensive side of things, right? When we'll get to Jalen and the offense soon about how they haven't hit their stride. The Eagles are 3-0. The defensive line has looked great, and they haven't even hit their stride when it comes to Hassan Reddick and those guys.
Let me ask you something. How have you felt about Sean Desai so far this season? Because the rushing defense, obviously, much, much better. They basically shut down the run the first 3 games and forced these teams to air the ball out, which not a lot of these teams want to do that, right? With Baker Mayfield and Mac Jones. But looking at last week, just the willingness to try something different and put James Bradberry in the slot when you're going against a top 5 slot wide receiver like Chris Godwin. Like, just willing to make that adjustment. That's something that we just haven't seen, man. So, like, that kind of impressed me. So I'm just curious how you felt about him as a whole and the defense as a whole so far.
No, I agree. So hats off to Bradberry as well for taking that task and that assignment, right? Because most guys, you're an all-pro outside corner.
Yeah.
No, coach, I don't want to play the slot. I don't want to play one of the game's best slot receivers and maybe get shaken out of my shoes tonight, right? But he didn't. He took the assignment. I think Chris Godwin had like 1 third down catch against James Bradberry one-on-one. That was it. It wasn't impactful at all. The thing with the side, man. So this is a very interesting point. We get caught up at the end of games when they're up, like New England week 1, you're up 16-0 on the road in bad condition. You're up by what, 20-7 or whatever, or 27-7 against the Vikings on Thursday night, and they kind of come back and they backdoor cover and all that. We get so caught up in the relaxed coverage, as Marshawn Lynch is talking about, and the 10 yards off the line of scrimmage, and it pisses us off. But the bottom line is, from what I've seen from Sean Desai's unit, when the game is critical, when the game is close to start, it's drastically different than Jonathan Gannon. There's different there's different blitzes. He's bringing safeties up in the box. I watched Reed Blankenship hit a hole the other night and make a play in the backfield. That wasn't happening in the past. Now he gets a lead. I know we get annoyed when teams start to come back and move the football easily, but every team does it, man. I'm not saying that it's right and to follow what every defensive coordinator does, but that's the thing. Keep everything in front of you. Now, it becomes annoying when you could possibly lose a game because you get that relaxed, but that's the thing that, I don't know, you're supposed to do in this day and age, I guess. But when the game starts, when the game matters, he's been a difference maker. And that's what I take positive moving forward is like, man, when we play Patrick, when we play Josh Allen, when we play the 49ers, now I'm really intrigued to see what this new look defense looks like, because maybe we will force a punt against the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Something we didn't do under Jonathan Gannon.
Yeah.
But no,
I I'm with you because like the first thing I think of, and don't get me wrong, I get it. I get the frustration. It's things that we complain about with Jonathan Gannon as far as that non-press coverage, right? Backing 10 yards off. And to your point, it is when they get a 2 possession or more lead, right? Is when you start seeing him fall back into those drop coverages. So like when I'm looking at our schedule down the line, it's like maybe Mac Jones doesn't scare you with taking the top off of your defense, right? The big play. Maybe there's not a wide receiver on that team that scares you. But when you get to the Miami Dolphins and say you can get a 2-possession lead on the Miami Dolphins, do you want your corners playing press coverage on Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle? Like, no, that's not what we want to see. So I think when you look at it from a holistic standpoint, it's just a formula. Right? Yeah. We're up by two or more possessions. We need to make sure we don't give up the big play. And I think that's more than acceptable when he is willing to press coverage, when he is willing to bring pressure early on in the game to build these leads and get these early turnovers. So I do get the frustration. I think we just need to let it play out more and see more of this scheme. At the end of the day, he's implementing something new, right? This is a new defensive coordinator. It's a learning and process, right? It's part of it. So,
and let's go back to
his get overly frustrated by that.
Right. Think about this. He lost his Mike linebacker. He lost his number one safety after week 1 for a week. He lost 2 more safeties. Hassan Reddick was basically right. Bradbury missed a game. Maddox is now out. He had to make an adjustment there.
Top slot corner.
Reddick was basically in a cast. Like he wasn't 100% at all. So he's working through all of these different variables, and it's worked out so far, man. So with that being said, let's kind of translate this to this game because that quick little recap of the defense while Scotty was gone, man. It's been a while since we did this.
It's been fun.
It feels like it's been a while. Today's game against Sam Howell and the Washington Commanders, man, at home, I think plays a factor, right? Because Washington. I don't know. Some Washington Commanders, the change of ownership, the fan base, Sam Howell comes out, they come back against Denver. Washington's fans have some kind of, not swagger, but some kind of positivity behind this team that they're going to do something with the howitzer, right? Scotty, why are the Eagles going to put a cap on that and stop and get after Sam Howell today?
Yeah, man, it's fun. The Commanders have played decently, right, to start the season, and it all kind of fell apart against the Buffalo Bills. And why is that? Why is that?
The competition.
Because the Buffalo Bills are a Super Bowl contender. They're in the talks of winning the league, right? So when you think of the Buffalo Bills, you would put the Eagles in that category as well, and that's why today you're going to see the Eagles dominate the Washington Commanders. And it starts with that Washington offensive line. Sam Howell, you mentioned it. He's been drove into the ground 19 times this season in 3 games. He got sacked 9 times last week against the Buffalo Bills. When I'm looking at the Buffalo Bills, with all due respect, that defensive line is not touching the Philadelphia Eagles defensive line. So when I look at this, it's the perfect feast day. Like you talked about Hassan Reddick earlier, it's time to get on the nod, right? It's time to get multiple sacks. I'm looking for 5+ sacks from this defensive line. And that's not necessarily a marker of, they need to get this to win. Right. It's more or less a marker of this game's going the way I thought it was. And this is the way this defensive line is supposed to be feasting. But I think it's a perfect opportunity for our edge rushers to get involved in this game today and get after the quarterback. Sam Howell threw 4 interceptions last week. They turned the ball over 5 times. We're only able to put up 3 points in that game last week.
That was at home, by the way.
And it was at home. Now they're coming to Philly, and I know everybody gets caught up in that loss on Monday Night Football last year. I get it. But at the end of the day, Taylor Heineke looked better than what Sam Howell is looking this season so far. And I just think this Eagles team is much, much different. You're not going to see them come out and lay a fart. This Eagles team has a lot of motivation right now, even with being 3-0. So for them to come out and lay an egg, I just don't see that. And I believe that's what it would take for the Commanders to even have a chance in this game. But it starts with the trenches, man. If you can get up in them, get the pressure on Sam Howell, force turnovers early, you can run away with this game early. And I also think when you look at the defensive line and what they've done against the run this season so far, that's going to be a huge part of it because they should be able to shut Brian Robinson down. he's had like this multiple game streak of 50+ rushing yards. Eagles are only giving up 48 rushing yards per game. They've made teams one-dimensional, and I don't see any reason why that shouldn't continue today.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, man. It starts and ends with the Eagles' defensive line. It starts and ends in the trenches with this team basically every year, right? But it's more evident against a team like the Washington Commanders, who don't run the ball necessarily well. But if you can eliminate that or shorten that from their playbook, then it makes Sam Howell one-dimensional, and it makes getting after him 10 times easier than it was already going to be. And then he struggles and so on. And so it's kind of a domino effect, right? You take that one little thing, that first flick, that first drop, and then boom, 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 boom. And the Eagles are getting after Sam Howell. Scotty, it's chill. Look, he changed his name. But yeah, man. So we have 3 new YouTube channels, actually. So if you want to subscribe to all of them, we have this one, the Turf Talk one, and the Scotty Talks NBA one as well. Just kind of not a rebranding thing, but trying to figure out this YouTube thing and what's best for content-wise and algorithm-wise. So yeah, we kind of broken it up instead of putting all the content on one page where it doesn't know who to push it to and all of that. So yes, sir. He's got Jalen Carter with 2 sacks today and an easy win. Marshawn Lynch, this game feels like the Steelers game last year where A.J. Brown had 3 touchdowns. So we spent the first 20 minutes on defense, and I think rightfully so. They have been the more positive. They have been the story of this Eagles 3-0 start so far this season. But to get to the offensive side of things where they have struggled, Brian Johnson, Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts, trying to figure this relationship out between new offense coordinator, who he's very familiar with, and the start of the season. Now, Scotty, let me ask you, because this is a very pressing discussion amongst Philadelphia fans and Eagles fans right now on social media. Guys, I promise you it's okay to say he's struggling a bit, but he will be okay, and the Eagles are still 3-0. That's my takeaway. I don't think Jalen Hurts has looked good this year. I don't think he's looked horrible. I just think he's looked really good at times. That throw in the pocket, taking that hit to Olamide Zaccheaus for a touchdown was one of the greatest throws I've seen him make. That Olamide Zaccheaus third down throw when he took a hit from the back and the front. Pause. That was a great throw as well. But he's also missed things down the field. He's also turned the ball over a couple different times when he shouldn't be. So it's okay to say he's struggling, but he will be okay moving forward. Is that kind of where you sit right now with Jalen Hurts?
Yeah, and I think you can see it within his play. Like, he's obviously just trying to catch up with the new weapons, right? DeAndre Swift getting implemented into this offense, but also the new offensive coordinator. Yeah, RB1, clearly. Like, we can have a discussion about that as well. But that it is no longer a discussion. How about that? That's the better way to put it. But you saw it in that game against the Bucs where DeAndre Swift and him are just not on the same page. And honestly, that is on Jalen Hurts, in my opinion. It was an option route for DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift goes inside. He's wide open. Jalen Hurts throws it to the outside. That's miscommunication. I think that's Hurts' fault. But nonetheless, it's miscommunication between him and a new piece. They're trying to get everything on track. He's trying to get guys involved, right? You saw him. They forced the ball to A.J. Brown in that game last week. And rightfully so. He's your wide receiver one. You got to get the ball in his hands. But you can tell they're just trying to figure out all of these moving pieces. And in the meantime, they're able to run the ball down these teams' throats. So that's part of it, right? Just being able to run the ball freely. DeAndre Swift picks up a first down every time he touches the ball. So that does take the ball out of Jalen Hurts' hands. But the 3 interceptions, I think, is just what we need to clean up there, right? The turning the ball over. We don't need to give the ball back to these teams, right? Against the Chiefs, against the Bills, the 49ers, you can't afford to do that. So that's what I'm looking for today. We need to cut that out, the early turnovers, get off to a fast start, and finish in the red zone, right? I think that's where we've really seen this offense be unfamiliar or unkiltered, right? We need them to get the ball into the end zone when they get down there near the goal line. And I think that's the biggest thing. But yeah, Jalen Hurts, I would give him B-, C+ right now in the season. And I think that's a good thing when you're looking at a 3-0 Eagles team right now.
Here's what I think is the struggle right now. Not only getting, familiar with some of the new weapons offensively, getting familiar with the new play caller, which I want to talk about Brian Johnson moving forward as well, because the red zone play calling is still a problem.
Yeah.
Like they got into the red zone like 7 times on Monday night and scored 2 touchdowns.
No balance, man.
No,
balance.
no. They get inside the 15. It's either 3 runs or 3 dropbacks. They don't. There's no run on first down, play action on second down. It's run, or pass. That bothers me. Third and goal from the 2 or the 1, they pull out the fake brotherly shove, tush push, whatever you want to call it. He trips. Just too cute, man. You didn't need to do that up 2 scores, 3 scores against the Bucs on prime time. You didn't need to do all that.
Why waste that play too?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Why waste that play? That was weird.
What I think the problem is, right, is the fact that they are going through this learning curve with Jalen of making him more of a pocket quarterback.
Fair.
He was one of the league's best last year. I know that. You know that. But there was that balance. Why was he so elite from the pocket? Because he had free reign. He was able to get out of the pocket. They're trying to keep him in the pocket more. I think it's very evident that they're doing so when he's sliding behind the line of scrimmage, not taking hits on a quarterback draw, right? So he's kind of going through that learning curve of, he was very successful at it when it was, I don't know, somewhat limited, right? He wasn't just a pocket passer last year.
Yeah.
They're doing that so far to start the year. I think, man, Scotty, I know we're afraid of him getting hurt. You got to take the training wheels off, man. Let Jalen Hurts be Jalen Hurts. That's what makes him dynamic. That's what makes him an MVP caliber player. That's what makes him a Super Bowl winning quarterback. You saw it in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Don't limit him because you're afraid of injury, man.
Yeah.
Injuries can happen in the pocket as well.
He hasn't ran the ball much this season, right? He has 100 rushing yards on the year through 3 games. And I think to your point of just letting him loose, today's the perfect day because the Commanders' defensive line is pretty good, right? We talked about the Eagles' defensive line a lot in this show so far, but the Commanders have seven different guys that have a sack on the season. I think Montez Sweat leads the way with 3 sacks on the season.
Yeah.
So this is the day. Like Jalen Hurts is going to have to get out of the pocket and make some throws downfield today.
And
Let
that's
him
what I mean.
Himself. Let him be himself, right?
I don't hate the limited designed quarterback runs. You can limit those.
That's
great.
fine.
I don't need him taking unnecessary hits like that. What I'm saying is, for me, it seems evident that Jalen is more cautious of not escaping and extending plays at times. Third downs, we've seen him pick up a couple with his legs, but he's definitely more cautious of that. And I think that's what kind of limits him a little bit to start this year. And I think they need to figure out a way to get through that, man. Yeah, I agree, man. Yeah. He's a real pastor, right?
Officiated our wedding, right?
Yeah,
no,
can't believe I thought he's a real pastor.
No, I feel Pastor Rems there, but I don't know. I think we can expose the Washington Commanders today. At the same time, their defense is solid. I think their defensive line is top 10, top 5-ish. But this offensive line is legit at the end of the day, and we're due for a good game, man. At the end of the day. The passing game has not been where we wanted.
No.
And I think today is that day we can get off that hill, man.
Exactly. So that is the takeaway. Well, we're going to get into the offense versus Washington today now, but that is the main takeaway. Jalen and the play calling have not been great to start this year. A.J. Brown hasn't scored and hadn't gotten going until last week. Dallas Goedert, I don't even know if he's made the trip on some of these road trips so far, and they're still 3-0.
Can I say something?
Sure.
A pass to Dallas Goedert does not have to be a screen. Like I love the screens to Goddard. He makes plays after the catch. It doesn't have to be that. You can throw the ball down the field to him, man. It's really ridiculous. I don't understand it sometimes, man. Like this dude is what 6'5", 6'6". I'm not sure how tall he is. He's a big ass dude. Hit him in the middle of the field. He's a big guy. You can throw the ball up for him. He makes spectacular catches. I just wanted to throw that in there. It's so annoying seeing him behind the line catching the ball and then getting stood up. People are ready for that. We need to see him go down the field and catch the ball.
Well, we also need to eliminate the wide receiver screens as well. The Devontae Smith behind the line of scrimmage screen with one lead blocker and a slot receiver is not cutting it. So let's just throw that one out the window.
At least for a little while, right? Until teams stop or are unable to predict it, man. It's too predictable right now.
I agree. But, Scotty, do you think the Eagles' offense kind of finds its rhythm a little bit today Obviously, like I said, they only scored 2 touchdowns last week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They only scored 2 touchdowns against the New England Patriots, right? They scored 3 touchdowns against the Minnesota Vikings, but even that was a up and down kind of performance from the offense, right? Is today the breakout game? Is today, 37, 38 points from the Eagles?
I do think so. I do think they get up into the upper 30s today, and I think it's more or less to make a statement. There's just been so much talking, right? Even with them being 3-0, there's been so much talk around this offense and the tush push, right? By the way, I think that brotherly shove, I think they're going to get brotherly shoved down their throat today. Pause. Because Jack Del Rio just had to open his mouth about the play, right? He just had to open his mouth. You're going to get it full force. You'll probably see it about 3 or 4 times at some point throughout this day.
And after I do it, I would turn to the sideline and stare at him and just drop the ball for a first down.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's what it's all about. I'm so tired of hearing about that shit. But yeah, I think the Eagles they get to it today, and I think it starts with the passing game. I think it starts with the decision making. Now when it comes to like who's going to make the plays, right? Because they fed AJ Brown a lot last week. It feels like Smitty's day, right? That's been where all the hype is this week. He's going up against Emmanuel Forbes, who he absolutely torched in college. He obviously torched the Commanders last year in that first game. So we're looking for Smitty, but I think all of these receivers, Goddard, AJ, Smitty, they all need a breakout game.
Alberto is active.
It could be any of them, man. It could be any one of them in this game. Did you just say Alberto? Is he getting
He's active.
He's active today. Interesting.
Listen to me. I'm not betting it. But if he scores today, I'll puke because I thought about Zacchaeus last week and I didn't do it. And Alberto,
I did think about Zacchaeus last week as well.
Inside the 10, you need to put his big ass out on the field.
Yeah.
Because he's a pass catching threat in the red zone inside the 10. Put his big ass out on the field with Goddard and go figure it out. And if he catches a touchdown today, I'm going to be happy, but I'm also going to be a little sour about it.
Yeah. I feel you. I was on Zacchaeus last week as well, but I did not lay it. Yep. But man, I don't know. There's part of me that does feel the Smitty big game, but then there's part of me that feels like there's so much attention on Smitty. Yeah. It could be AJ's day. It could be Goddard's day.
I think AJ scores today, man.
Yeah. I'm all over the Eagles passing offense today, but I do think it's key. Keep feeding that hot hand as well, and DeAndre Swift. Keep him involved in the game, right? Washington has a top tier rush defense as well, but so did the Buccaneers.
Calling him by his name. I refer. It's just RB1.
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 I feel you. I had to grab his jersey while I was on vacation. I was like really drunk, and I was watching the game last week, and I was just like, God, this is my guy, man. Like I have to die on this heel, even if they don't extend him. Now, mind you, it was a cheaper jersey, right? It was one of the faker ones, but $40 nonetheless. Brought the number 0 home. The Black Eagles jersey. I had to grab it because I'm gonna die on that hill, man. I spoke on it all off season. I spoke on it since he was the Detroit Lions, and we've been talking about it all off season coming into this season. And it's so clear now when you watch this man touch the ball. It's just ridiculous. So I think that's part of the equation today, but I don't think that that's the number one factor today. I think the number one factor has to be Jalen Hurts making plays down the field. And I think there's going to be plenty of opportunity for them to do that against this defense, man.
I agree, man. So I'm guessing you think the Eagles get it done today?
Yeah, I'm going with the Eagles dub today, man. 34-17. I was leaning more actually 34-13, but I gave them a little bit of credit. 2 touchdowns maybe in, garbage time. Get an extra field goal there. But yeah, I had to go with the Birds today. 34 plus. I think they're scoring 34, 35 points.
Listen, man,
today, man.
I think a very underlying story to this game is the link in this crowd because I think it has to be spoken of. This is the first Sunday game at the link.
1 p.m.
They've been on the road twice and they played a Thursday night game. Now, don't get me wrong. It was sold out. They were ready to go. I got you. But this is gates open. We're in there at 6 a.m. all day long. And it's just different.
Ready to feast.
Different type of thing, right? So that crowd's going to be nuts. And when you talk about a rookie quarterback like Sam Howell, who got shell-shocked by a true contender in his home stadium last week. I can't imagine what that looks like against a better defensive front in the Philadelphia Eagles and the Buffalo Bills on the road in front of this crowd. I don't see any way, shape, or form that Sam Howell finds a way to get this job done today. It's a 9.5 point spread. It might, that was last night when I looked at it. It could be 10 now. I don't know.
Who's your offensive and defensive standouts? Who do you got there?
So good point. So guys, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button. We appreciate it. But moving forward on Eagles pregame live, I promise we'll be a lot more segmented. Me and Scotty have not talked in a minute, so there was a lot of recapping going on. There would be more.
We had to catch up.
Stars of the game, stuff like that, game predictions moving forward. But we had to catch up on what we were missing. On offense, again, I'll go back to AJ Brown, man. I think that he reaches the end zone at least once today, could be twice. Obviously, I don't think like Smitty might have the bigger day. He might have more targets, more receptions, but I think AJ Brown is the one that finds the end zone. Smitty's already been in there, twice? AJ double digits last year, hasn't found it yet. I think he will at home today. And then on defense, I want to go with Hassan Reddick, man. Like I want to go with Jalen Carter. I want to ride. I want to stick with my guy there because I do think he disrupts Sam Howell often today. But I'll go with Hassan Reddick. The cast is off. He finally seems like he's 100%. He's openly, publicly spoken about it, his slow start, but said the same thing, man. Like I didn't have a sack in the first 3 weeks last year either. So I think he gets right today, and I think Hassan Reddick, I will say at least 1.5 sacks today. Yeah,
I'm with you on Hassan Reddick. I haven't given multiple sacks today. Maybe a forced fumble, right? Catch the quarterback off guard. A 49ers-esque type of sack on Brock Purdy, but Sam Howell this time. I'm with you on that. Well. Yeah, I'm with you on that. Offense, I went with DeAndre Swift. Just the balancer, right?
RB1.
I think we will get after it in the passing game today, but I think we still need to keep that offense balanced and feed RB1, right? Maybe it's not 100 rushing yards today. Maybe it's just 80 rushing yards, right? Yeah. But nonetheless, keeping him involved, giving him the carries, the touches that he needs to keep the offense balanced.
So let me ask you something. So those are kind of our stars of the game, and we both think they win. But what are you looking for? I'll tell you.
Yeah,
I'm going with obviously Jalen Hurts to figure this thing out, right? To get this offense in a rhythm and score inside the red zone. I'm looking at, and then I go to Brian Johnson, and I also go to the personnel, man.
Yeah,
because I know, it's RB1 for me. It should be universal RB1.
Yeah,
and I know they had a big lead late, and maybe they just took him out of the game to spare him. It was still 16 carries to 14 carries.
Yeah,
in no world should that be the case. You can see the talent discrepancy. Man, I know the Eagles' offensive line is dominant, and people were screenshotting the holes that DeAndre Swift was running through and saying, oh, yeah, Swift is a god. Why wasn't Kenneth Gainwell doing it then?
Yeah, it's very simple. He did. Kenneth Gainwell tried to hurdle a player just like Swift did, and he couldn't do it. I get it. That's not the marker that we're looking for with running backs, but it is a clear discrepancy in talent. The way Swift hits a hole, look how fast he gets 5 yards.
Again,
and the thing about Swift, it's not even the speed and the quickness and the breakout ability right now. He's breaking tackles.
Yep.
He's creating yards after contact. Yep. That's the biggest thing right now. He looks completely explosive.
The Eagles, since Jalen Hurts has taken over as starting quarterback, the Eagles have been the most dominant rushing team the last 2 years. We know that. But they've been such a balanced group. Jalen's played a factor in that. A trio of running backs. And they just kind of slowly take your life, right? 3 yards, 6 yards, right? Swift gives an explosive element out of the backfield and a consistently explosive element through the last 2 weeks. He didn't even get the ball in week 1, which is mind-boggling to me anyway. But listen,
how do you see that in practice?
I'll shout it from the rooftops. There's a spot for Kenneth Gainwell on this team.
Yeah.
He deserves playing time. He does not deserve almost a 50-50 share of the football with DeAndre Swift. Kenneth Gainwell can come in and get 6 carries a game.
Yeah.
A pass catch out of the backfield.
Get 20.
He can touch the ball. Right.
It's very simple.
That's good.
You mentioned it. I mean, Swift is leading the league in yards per rush right now.
Yeah.
He's second in the league in rushing yards.
And he didn't get the ball in the first quarter or the first game.
Yeah, without touching the ball in week 1. He is second in the league in rushing right now we have a premier running back. Just keep feeding the hot hand. It's very clear, man.
I agree. But guys, that is going to wrap up this edition of Eagles pregame live. We will be live this week as the Phillies head into the postseason, hosting either the Marlins or the Diamondbacks. So we'll be live for Phillies pregame live, Eagles pregame live, Sixers pregame live, the Faithful Fanatic Show Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings here, all on this YouTube channel. So if you're new, subscribe to this DSM-Media Philadelphia YouTube channel. Turf Talk also makes its return with Scotty back this week. We will be live Thursday and Sunday moving forward throughout the regular season. So make sure you're subscribed to that channel as well. And I'll take a stab at this one and say that Scotty Talks NBA might be returning soon with all of this, I guess, negative news for the Philadelphia 76ers. But
we got to break it down.
Enjoy the rest of your Sunday and go Birds.
Go Birds.